But I want you to know why I have been so stalwart and so committed to the folks who provide these services to the people of the state of Washington. It's because this is, in a sense, personal to me. I think you know that my grandmother took care of folks at the Rainier School. And she came home sometimes tired, but always committed to her job. And it doesn't matter how tough it was. She got up every morning or at night, whatever shift she was in, and she took care of people that needed caring for. That has an impact. That has an impact on me. When I was up at the Skagit River Bridge, when the I-5 bridge was in the river, and people said it was impossible to build that bridge up in maybe 6 months or a year, and I saw the state employees at the Department of Transportation and the State Patrol and DNR and the Department of Ecology put their heads together and exercise their creative talents and get that thing done in about 27 days. That's what state employees can do. When I was at OSO and met those families that were so devastated in a community that was so traumatized by this incredible cataclysmic mudslide, and when a community has that happen to them, it strikes so deep in the souls of these people. And I got to tell you, it was gratifying to me when I saw people who work for the Department of Natural Resources or people who work for the Department of Agriculture. You know, you think of the people who work for the Department of Agriculture, you might think of them as just helping apple orchards. No, they were there for the people of OSO to help them get their lives together. That's what state employees are to me. And because of that, it has been so troublesome to me that we went through such a period of growing demand for services with fewer employees available to actually provide those services. And all of you have been impacted by the years of that increasing demands on work and decreasing resources to be able to get the job done. And yet, like my grandmother, you got up every day, you showed up, you did high quality work, and that work shows. And that's why I'm pleased to stand before you as governor to celebrate a budget that at long last invests in our state workers. And I don't have to tell you, it's been 6 years since there have been any particular COLA. And frankly, I wish, we had a modest COLA that we achieved this year. Wish we could have done more, but I can tell you a lot of people want to do less. Their number was goose egg 0. And I said, these collective bargaining agreements going to stand. They stood, we stood together, and I'm glad we got this job done. Now, it's not just in a legislature what you get done. Sometimes you got to celebrate the things that weren't done that can be harmful, that can take your state backwards. And this year, some really bad ideas were attempted in Olympia. Everything from not fully funding these agreements to legislation that would weaken collective bargaining laws were proposed. But we were tenacious, and we were vigilant, and most importantly, we were united. And we have to remain now tenacious and vigilant and united, because we will continue to see these attacks on workers on collective bargaining rights succeed in other states. And we are not going to let that happen in the state of Washington. Not on my watch. Actually, wouldn't it be great if some people across the country realized that the second person out of the presidential race was Scott Walker of Wisconsin? So in addition to the modest COLA, I think there are things that we can celebrate. The ability to fund recruitment and retention pay by class and by geography. are continued the personal holiday, and the fact that we added new wellness incentives, giving an opportunity to help improve wellness and lower the healthcare deductible by $125. I want to note, this is important to me because everybody who's a state employee, you're important to me personally. Your health is important to me. The bottom line of the state budget is not the only thing I get up in the morning thinking about. I see people working hard, and I want them to be in employment for many, many years. And I want them to go home healthy, without heart attacks, and without diabetes. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you who are helping your colleagues use the opportunities to work on this. So I was really thrilled to go on a walk with folks this year, and I'm pleased to be able to offer a way for you to save on your healthcare costs by trying some of these wellness activities. But one thing for sure that did not contribute to employee wellness was the state budget negotiations coming down to the wire yet once again. A budget agreement was delivered to me just in the nick of time to avoid a government shutdown. Now, I'm glad we averted a shutdown. And back in January, I told legislators they needed to buckle down and get me a budget. And I know that this is not fair to the state workers. The threat of a shutdown creates stress, it creates uncertainty, it creates uncertainty for vendors and the general public. And I got to tell you, it was really disappointing to me that the legislators weren't able to move the ball until the very last moment. But I am not disappointed in the budget that we got. It's a budget that finally recommits to providing essential services for the people of the state of Washington, and it funds the workforce that is required to provide those services. And that's important to say. That's important to say for this reason. We know because of this McCleary decision, we are going to have to find $3 billion additional for the educational system of our state. And I'm dedicated to improving the education of our kids. I think that's a great worthy mission for the people of the state of Washington. But we are also under a court order and a moral obligation to provide for the most vulnerable citizens in the state of Washington. And we know who protects them, it's state employees. So I want to share. So I've made clear from the beginning that we want to do our best to provide these services in our state mental health hospitals using state workers, the high quality folks, instead of outsourcing them. So isn't it great that we worked with the legislatures to expand hospital funding to add 288 positions? I think this is a good thing. We've increased mental health care treatment options and adding 145 beds to prevent psychiatric boarding and another 90 beds to shrink wait times for those who are waiting in hospitals. And you know that keeping kids safe is a big priority for me, and we know what it is for Washingtonians. So we have funded 41 more Child Protective Service workers and case managers. And these additional positions will enable us to more rapidly conduct investigations of abuse and neglect to ensure that foster kids are safe. Again, when we give state employees what they need, our kids get safer. That's what I'm all about, so I'm happy about it. Now, there's a lot of, but the hits keep coming. I grew up, the best days of my life was when my dad and mom threw me in the back of a '56 Chevy station wagon, and we went out to Tawana State Park. So 55 years later, I'm really happy to say that we put in $22.3 million so state park, state employees can give people good vacations in our state park. I'm happy about that. But of all the things that we have done together, and we've done a lot of good things. I don't think there's anything you can do better than when you give a 3 or 4-year-old kid a shot in life. We got too many kids that are in our correctional institutions that if they'd got a little leg up when they were 3 or 4, might have been in our college institutions. So I'm happy that we made significant investments in early learning, including adding 1,600 more slots in the ECAP program. This means more kids from low-income households are going to have access to preschool so that when they get to kindergarten, they're ready to learn. This is a big deal for the state of Washington. But we got work to do to make sure that we don't slide backwards. We've made this progress, but I'm telling you, we got to stay united to make sure we don't slide backwards. And the reason is because we have a need to put $3 billion in the educational system. I can tell you where some people in the legislature think they want to get it. They want to go back to this bad old habit of hollowing out state services for the disabled, for the people who want to go to state parks, for folks who need protection. That's where they want to consider a bank to solve our educational woes. Well, I got to tell you what, it doesn't help our first graders and our first grade classes to have more homeless, hungry, sick kids. That's not a solution to this problem. We've got to find a better investment strategy in this way. Finally, I want to address an issue that goes well beyond state workers. And that is this curse of having an economy that does not serve the many, but only serves the few. And it is a deep and abiding threat both to our families, but to democracy itself, to see this ever-widening gap between the haves and have-nots in our society. And it is a pain, a moral pain to me, that right now in Seattle and Tacoma, we're adding tens of thousands of new jobs, but we're adding hundreds and thousands of more people living in their cars, trying to educate their kids, parked in a church parking lot, trying to get their kids to go to first grade. And that's the economy that we have today. That economy needs significant restructuring. It needs restructuring in a way and I know there are many things we need to do, but I think we ought to start with the proposition that if you work full-time, you ought to have a house over your head and food for your kids, and that's why we got to raise the minimum wage. It's just one of the things we got to get done here. And if you're a restaurant worker or any kind of worker, instead of having to go to work to feed us with the flu, you ought to have paid sick leave so you can take care of your family as well. So in this period of stratification and income equality, we know that there are many political forces that want to retain the status quo. They think where we are is just good enough. Where we are is just not good enough. Just not good enough. We cannot abide working families slipping backwards every single year. That's not good enough for our state. It's not good enough for our country. But when we do this, let's make people understand that our motivation is not based on envy or jealousy. It is based on common sense and the respect for every worker in the United States and the state of Washington. That's what this is based on. And we know that of all the things, the tools that are at our disposal to assure that working people have the ability to have a roof over their heads and a weekend, is the right to collectively bargain. That is the most fundamental right when it comes to income equality. And we know that many people think that somehow a lot of American and Washingtonian rights are passé. This is not a passe right. It is a fundamental human right. It is an American right. It is a Washingtonian right. It is a right that I'm going to work with you, make sure is protected in the state of Washington. We need a labor. And we know that one of the reasons that we are beset by this scourge of inequality is the decline of organized labor. We know this is one of the reasons that we're in this pickle. So I intend to work with you to make sure that we reverse that trend. And our work is not just about this biennium. It's about the kind of state that we want to live several biennia down the road. It's about a future of the state of Washington for our kids and our grandkids. I'm so pleased to have stood with you year after year and this year on this budget. And it's why I'm looking forward to working with you year after year. And instead of a balanced budget on the backs of our public employees, we're going to work hard for a budget that has the back of our state employees and the backs of the people they serve every day across the state. We're going to get this done together. Let's make sure that we keep this state moving forward. Thanks a lot. Let's get the job done. Let's go keep working together. Thanks a lot.